And what is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the YouTube channel. We have the 2023 NFL draft coming up, man. It's going to be an exciting time. Shout out to everybody in here. We have that dude, Evan, that was in here very early. We have Brandon B in the house. And I, of course, have joining me today, as you see in the title of the video, Jaguars draft talk with the Jordan DeLugo from the GenJag YouTube channel. What's going on, Jordan?
What's up, man? Happy to be here. Happy to talk some Jags football.
Yeah, man. I don't know about you, but I'm fired up right now about just the different signings this week. We brought Josh Wells in. We're finally getting the late swing of free agency in here, where we're kind of filling out the roster a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, fortifying the back end of the offensive line is always a good idea. Josh Wells, maybe not all the Jaguars fans out there remember him from 2014 to 2017 when he was here, but he was a very reliable swing tackle, and that's exactly what he's going to be for the Jaguars this year. It looks like, getting him, he can play left tackle, he can play right tackle, doesn't give up a lot of pressure when he's in there. He can kind of hold down the fort. He can also start some games for you if need be. And then bringing in Chandler Brewer. He's another guy that started games last year for the Rams. Played some tackle in college, played some tackle early on in his career, but mostly played guard more recently, and started 4 games for the Rams at guard last year. Didn't give up a sack. Has got that big size and 6'6", 300 pounds, 35-inch arms, kind of that bulky build. So yeah, I think just bringing in guys to fortify the back of that offensive line and create competition and depth there, it's going to bring out the best in the rest of the guys at the back of the room as well.
Yeah, and I know some people had their reservations about it. And look, you're not going to find Trent Williams as a swing tackle. You know what I mean? You gotta bring in a body. You got to bring in a guy that fits your budget. And that's really what the Jaguars signings are right now, man. I mean, they're not, right now, these are kind of the caliber of signings that you're going to get. You kind of wait until free agency dies down, where all of a sudden the premium on these different contracts goes way down, and then it's officially settled. And market price is market price. You're not paying market price plus a premium for any of these guys at the moment. So it's a good signing. I mean, it fills definitely a huge hole. I mean, swing tackle was a hole, and it's an extremely important position. Now, any moves that the Jaguars make from here on out, nothing's going to affect the NFL draft. I mean, signing Josh Wells isn't going to be like, well, what was it? Anton Smith? I forget. I'm so bad at the project names right now. The tackle from Oklahoma.
Anton Harrison, yeah.
Anton Harrison, yeah. It's not like, okay, we got Josh Wells, Anton Harrison is off the board. No, I mean, it's just filling out depth, making sure that you're not completely, tanked when it comes to your roster, especially depth when the season comes up. But, we definitely have to nail this upcoming draft, that's for sure.
Yeah, I do think, excuse me, it doesn't preclude the Jaguars from drafting an offensive tackle or an interior offensive lineman early. Like you said, if Anton Harrison's on the board and they really value him, they can go get him. But they don't have to feel pressured to go get an offensive tackle or an interior offensive lineman early in the draft now. They can kind of let the board fall to them and just see how it plays out. And if somebody does fall to them at that position that they like, they can still draft them. You're not going to have a Josh Wells or a Chandler Brewer, stopping you from drafting someone you value highly, right? But it just gives you a little bit more flexibility when you talk about the draft.
So I guess, after free agency, do you feel better or worse about the Jaguars after free agency? I know for me, I mean, you kind of did what you had to do. And look, I know you can't afford everybody. And I think right now there's some tough contracts right now, especially with Calvin Ridley, Josh Allen, and Evan Ingram. Their contracts completely against the cap. So, there's really not a whole lot you can do. But at the same time, I feel like the way free agency worked out really stunk for us with, not being able to give a good deal to Evan Ingram. We lost, Arden Key to our division rivals. And then I just look at it, it feels like there's more holes than I really wanted there to be. When it comes to pass rush, I mean, you lose Arden Key, then you also kind of lose DeJuan Smoot, because I know he is still afraid and we can still sign him back, but he tore his Achilles late in the season. And, and even if he does come back on a cheap deal, I mean, he's not going to be his same self in September. So you're essentially losing two solid pass rushers, two of your, when it comes to pure sack numbers, two guys that kind of led the team in sacks, a couple guys that led the team in sacks last year. And, right now, the way you replace it is kind of maybe through the draft and Trayvon Walker taking the next step. And, also you look at nickel cornerback. I don't think a lot of people are super pumped for Trey Herndon to potentially be, your week one starter. So I guess after free agency, what are your overall thoughts? Are you more comfortable or less comfortable with where we are?
So I wouldn't say I'm more or less comfortable. I think it's right there with where I was prior to free agency starting, because this team's baseline now is a team that's going to have a potent offense. They know how to use Evan Ingram. They're going to get Calvin Ridley in here. Trevor Lawrence going to take a step in year two in Doug Peterson's system. I think Travis Etienne will probably take a step forward. Both of those guys at times during the seasons, and especially down the stretch, they were absolute stars for the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne on offense. But they were also at times culprits and catalysts for losses when you talk about turnovers. I don't think you're going to be getting a lot of that in 2023 out of Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. I don't think the turnovers are going to happen nearly as much. So I think that's going to help you out. Because remember, that stretch of games that they were losing, they were all incredibly close games. And each one of those games, it seemed like there was a Trevor Lawrence fumble or interception or Travis Etienne fumble that kind of pushed or tipped the scales in the other team's direction. So I think the offense has a great baseline. I think you're returning 21 of 22 starters, right? Only guy you lost that's a starter is Jawan Taylor. And you already had a backup plan for Jawan Taylor. Like, people kind of forget, Walker Little, when he's been in the game, has looked damn good. And he pushed Jawan Taylor in that camp battle all the way to the very end of it. They didn't announce the starting right tackle last year until the very end. So I think you feel really good about the offense. Is Jawan Taylor a better player right now than Walker Little at right tackle? Yeah, probably. I mean, he was pretty fantastic in pass protection last year, but I think this is the natural order of things. When you have a cheaper replacement that looks like somebody that, might not be at the same level as Jawan Taylor right now, but can play at a high level, that's the direction you're going to go in. And the Evan Ingram contract, I think that kind of did throw a wrench into their plans. I don't think that they planned on having to franchise tag Evan Ingram. They said that at the beginning of the offseason that they didn't plan on using the franchise tag. They ended up having to do it. Unfortunately, that leaves you with a much larger cap hit for Evan Ingram than what you would have if you were able to sign him to a long-term deal. So I think that limited their ability to land a couple of the guys that they maybe had targeted that were bigger names. And then I also just think they're not going to go out and make a bunch of big swings just unnecessarily. If they're going to make a big swing, it's going to be someone they believe in. I think they kind of were in on Darius Slay. They were kind of in on Calais Campbell, but obviously the Falcons kind of blew that deal out of the water for Calais Campbell. Essentially, I feel really good about where they're at. Defensively, do you need more pass rush? Yes. Are there more pass rushers available in free agency? Absolutely. There's a bunch of pass rushers that I'd feel comfortable with the Jaguars bringing in free agency. And yeah, you need a nickel corner. You could use Darius Williams in the nickel, but I think he earned the right to play outside probably. But should he stop you from drafting another outside corner and just figuring out how it's going to work out between those three, Tyson Campbell, Darius Williams, and whoever you bring into the draft? No, I don't think that Darius should stop you from doing that.
Yeah,
But
I
you should
agree.
feel good about this team. Calvin Ridley's coming in. Trevor
Oh
Lawrence going
yeah.
into year three. Doug Peterson, head coach. I mean, there's a lot more positive than negative. And I know it's just difficult when you've been used to so many free agency signings over the years. A lot of fans have. That's just not what the team's doing these days. That's not how it works right now.
Yeah. And quick shout out to Steven. He said with a $5 donation. Remember, the Jags have a good schedule next year. For example, they play the NFC South. Expect big numbers on offense and possible Trevor Lawrence MVP. And yeah, that's the thing. Like right now, it's like, okay, we sit here and the past 20 years we're used to sitting here being like, oh my gosh, like our pass rush went down a little bit. right tackle we went down, like what's going to be like going up. But the thing that we've never had is we've never had like Doug Peterson and like Trevor Lawrence together. I mean, that just them getting a little bit improved is exponential improvement. And I mean, just the way Trevor and Doug finished the year last year, I mean, we overachieved definitely last year. And, really what we were at the last half of last year, imagine expanding that into a full season. I mean, it's going to be dangerous. It really is. And look, the Jaguars need to nail this draft. But Jordan, you know who else needs to nail this draft? The Chiefs, the Eagles, the Bengals, like every team out there. I mean, there's no team where it's like, oh, they'll be good. They can draft a bunch of bums. I mean,
What do
last
the
year, like
Chiefs need though?
yeah, but I mean, like
Honestly.
last year the Chiefs, late into the first round they draft like Karlaftis. It's like, I mean, we need to start doing that where we're
Oh,
drafting.
yeah, they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl last year without that draft.
Yeah,
That draft was fantastic.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. It's like every year, like, okay, we need to nail this draft, but it's like, look, that's how teams do it. You know what I mean? You draft your players, and then you take a look at where your roster is. What are your weaknesses? That's what you address in free agency. But we have the two hardest pieces right now, and that's Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence. And I mean, there's so many franchises right now that would kill for that. Unfortunately, we got these guys right when like the AFC became like an all-time juggernaut. I mean, it's going to be tough running through this this whole conference, but I believe in the next 10 years we should be in the Super Bowl at least a couple times. And like, yeah, that's the big thing. And look, there's some weaknesses. I mean, look, like nickel cornerback, like pass rush, but at the same time, like Calvin Ridley right now, I mean, he looks like a complete stud right now with just how his physique right now and how well he's running, and also just how hungry he is. I mean, you're not getting a guy that just wants another paycheck that's going to come back and go through the motions. Like, no, he's playing for pride right now. He's playing to basically cement his name, it looks like, in the NFL history books when it comes to, when you think of Calvin Ridley, you think of, some of the top receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, he talked about that obviously in his Players Tribune letter. And Trevor Lawrence, I think Demetrius Harvey spoke with him yesterday after he threw out the first pitch at the Jumbo Shrimp game, which was pretty cool. Tried to convince my wife to go to that one. Did not know Trevor was even pitching or throwing the first pitch, so that would have been a great surprise. But no, we weren't able to do it yesterday. But yeah, they were able to get together and throw. And Trevor talked about how excited he was after that session, and of course he's going to say that, but everything you've seen from him, from workout wise, from hearing that he's running 22 miles an hour in workouts, like it all looks like it's pointed in the right direction for Calvin Ridley for sure. I'm with you there. I think the sky could be the limit for that duo. And you were talking about quarterback and head coach, talking about improvement. The thing about quarterback, incremental improvement, like minor improvements at the quarterback position, can have massive ramifications on a football team. And I think you're going to see that from Trevor Lawrence this year. And I'd be really fired up. Or I am really fired up to see it. And then another thing, talking about free agency and not bringing in some of these big free agents, some of the guys that they've signed on the back end of this roster this year, like Dearness Johnson, Josh Wells, Chandler Brewer, um, these are types of guys that like 9 years ago, you'd be excited about signing to compete for starting jobs in Jacksonville. And now they're just coming in for depth, right? And I think that's a
Yeah.
beautiful thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Another quick shout out to Steven, another $5 donation. I can't wait until Falcons versus Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence will have 500 yards. It's also in Jacksonville. Yeah, we'll see about that one. So yeah, we have a Jordan here, and Jordan, I know you're really big into just the whole like draft community and all that. So really, with the Jaguars at pick number 24, is there like a dream scenario where realistically this player could be there, and if he's there, like this is my dream for the Jaguars at number 24?
Gosh, that's a tough one, man. Looking through my rankings, there's some players that like I see it's possible that they could fall for whatever reason. And maybe it's not even all the way to 24. Maybe they fall like out of the top 18 or top 15, and the Jaguars are like, let's go get this guy. There are a few players like that for me. Yeah. And you see Isaiah saying Brian Branch, he's absolutely one of them. Brian Branch is a top 10 prospect in this class for me. He did not have the elite speed numbers, but he's an explosive athlete. He's got quick feet, fluid hips, stays in phase and coverage. He, regardless of position, he is the best tackler in space in this class. He does not miss tackles. And it's not just a guy that can wrap up and bring you down. He can lower his head and lay the boom as well. I think he's just going to be such a solid player, and he's literally the perfect fit for what the Jaguars need. So if he was able to fall to 24, and you have seen a lot of these experts, Daniel Jeremiah, Todd McShay, Mel Kiper, mocking Brian Branch to fall out of the first round. So yeah, I think that would be absolutely amazing. I think if somehow Jackson Smith and Jigba slides down the board because people didn't really see him a lot last year because of his injury, I think he would be an unbelievable pick. I know people want to say, oh, he's only a slot. I don't buy it. I think this is a guy that can play anywhere you put him. And especially in a Doug Peterson coached offense, you don't have to worry about where he is. Doug Peterson is going to scheme him open. And he doesn't even need to be schemed open. He's one of the best route runners you'll ever see. Great hands, incredible quickness with his footwork. He's a nuanced route runner that just sets people up and catches everything. I think if he was your third receiver, that'd be a thing of beauty. And then moving past that, like if he's your third receiver this year, that's great. But then maybe you're able to get cheaper at the position by not paying Zay Jones the following year. You're able to clear up some cap space to do something else. I think just it's not a need, right? Like Zay Jones is a fine third receiver, and you've got Evan Ingram, who's really your third receiver, and all like they don't need it. But with Jackson Smith and Jigba potentially raise that offense's level to a point where pretty much any defense on the planet is going to have an impossible task dealing with them, I think so. And then you talk about a guy like Miles Murphy. He was projected prior to the 2022 season to be top 5, top 10 pick. Now some folks are talking about him falling into the 20s, edge rusher out of Clemson. I think he compares a lot to Trayvon Walker as a prospect, but he has a little bit more experience, or I should say a lot more experience rushing the passer from the edge. But similar athletically, physically, not quite the same freak athlete as Trayvon Walker, but let's be honest, no one is. But Miles Murphy is right up there with that athleticism and size. I think if he was able to fall to 24 and you bring him in to be your third edge behind Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen, I think that'd be huge too. You mentioned Anton Harrison at the top of the show. I know not everyone is in on him as a first rounder, but I think Anton Harrison, if the Jaguars brought him in to be the left tackle of the future, that would be a huge win for the team. He has some of the most violent hands in pass protection that you'll see, and just really good at setting up angles and just closing off angles at the very jump of a play. I think he's got great athleticism, great length. I think he'll continue to develop. He's one of the younger prospects in the draft, as Anton Harrison just turned 21. So fired up about all those guys I mentioned. And there's a whole bunch more prospects that I would be fired up to land at 24. But I would say those would be absolutely massive if the Jaguars were able to land them.
Yeah, and by the way, guys, I'm here with Jordan DeLuga from the GenJag YouTube channel. I put his descriptions down below, man, his YouTube channel, his Twitter handle, so go ahead and give him a follow and subscribe. But yeah, that's with the Jaguars at pick number 24, there's really no position I would say is off the board. I mean, even receiver. I mean, when you look at the Jaguars pass catchers right now, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram's a pass catcher, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, the thing they all have in common is that they're all very expensive. They're all free agents, and at some point, you got to bring some youth in there to be able to kind of relieve some of these contracts. So that's why, a guy like I don't know his name, Jackson from Ohio State, I'll just call him, could definitely be like on the board there. So yeah.
And the other thing about bringing in a young receiver there that's super talented like him, getting to learn from Christian Kirk and Calvin Ridley and all these guys for his first couple of years, that would be invaluable as well.
Yeah, you definitely got some wise heads in there, some guys with experience, not only on the Jaguars, but just around the NFL. I mean, all of them know, I mean, they know the ins and outs of the NFL by now, and they're all, definitely veterans by trade. So yeah, I mean, with the Jaguars, the only positions I don't see the Jaguars taking is like I wouldn't think if Bijan Robinson is there, I wouldn't think the Jaguars go after him. I know there's been some, people throwing it out there like, oh, if he truly is the best out there, I don't know. I just think it's too hard to get him involved and ETN involved. And then, I think that, and especially with Doug Peterson's offense, I mean, Doug Peterson's a guy that, I mean, if he was the head coach of this team, we might not have even had ETN, just because he likes to, the way he uses his running backs, or way he typically uses them at Philadelphia, he likes to really spread the love and have a bunch of guys get, pretty similar touches. And he does that between like 3 different players. But, with ETN being such an electrifying player, I mean, it's so hard not to just give that guy the ball like as much as you really can. And that's what, one thing I'm hoping the Jaguars do is like, get your guys, Dearness Johnson and, Hasty, a little bit more involved in different parts of the game. And I really want ETN to really work on just pass catching down the field, because if he can somehow like add like more of a vertical threat where like all of a sudden he's running out in open space and, running routes out there, like, kind of like an Alvin Kamara, man, I think that could just be really dangerous. And I think the Jaguars may have been trying to do that a little bit last year, but then there were some, ball security issues, and he dropped the ball a couple times down there. And I think they said, you know what, we're probably putting too much on his plate right now. Hasn't played football in 2 years. Just have him used to running in between the tackles and playing more like a pure running back before we really like open up the gates when it comes to that.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. You did see it early on that the Jaguars were trying to get him involved in the vertical passing game. You saw him drop one. You saw Trevor miss him wide open in the end zone against the Commanders in week 1. So, yeah, I think it just wasn't quite working out chemistry-wise. Maybe there was too much on his plate. But he has that skill set. I mean, he has the speed to just absolutely destroy angles and put the fear into the hearts of defensive backs when he's, whether he's stretching the seam or on a wheel route outside, whatever it may be. He has the skill to do that. Do they want to go in that direction this year more? I'm not sure. I think the fact that you have Calvin Ridley, I think everything else is going to be put behind, on the back burner a little bit more. Calvin Ridley is a wide receiver 1 type of talent. I don't know if they'll immediately feature him that way. They might try to kind of gradually bring him back into that type of role early on, but we'll see how that plays out. But I do think the passing game needs to now run through Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess when it comes to, with the Jaguars roster right now, one thing that surprises me is that the Jaguars haven't really went out and got any like tight ends. I mean, as I see it right now, I think the only tight ends on the roster like Evan Ingram, Luke Farrell, and Garrett Prince. And last year the Jaguars held 4 tight ends on the roster, and I think the roster size is I think at 90 right now, right? So it's like,
Yeah.
I guess, is this something that you like? What do you think the Jags' plan is there at tight end?
I'm not sure. I mean, Dan Arnold's still out there. I don't think this coaching staff loves him for whatever reason. He didn't get pretty much any reps last year out there, for the most part, compared to what he did in 2021. And in 2021, he was a very productive tight end for the Jaguars after they traded for him. But he's out there. Could they be, okay, Evan Ingram, we've got him for 1 more year. What if Michael Mayer falls to us? What if we can get Dalton Kincaid at 24? Or what if we can wait till 56 or 88 and get another talented tight end that we might like for the future? I think that could be part of the plan, certainly, because Doug Peterson does know how to use multiple tight ends, on the field at the same time in the same system. He can certainly do that. And then if you're not able to work something out with Evan Ingram long-term, or you just love the guy you bring in, maybe you just let Evan walk and then collect another comp pick for him next year.
Yeah, because that's the thing is like right now, like, like last year, we had, Manhurts, Ingram, and Dan Arnold all like with just no time left on their contract. And once again, you're entering this year with literally no future at tight end, because until Evan Ingram gets a long-term deal, he is still a short-term Band-Aid. I mean, you would like something to be worked out, but tight end is a really finicky spot when it comes to getting paid, because Evan Ingram's basically a slot receiver, but slot receivers are making way more money than him. So it's like, but how do you justify, paying him a lot of money when it's not the market rate? You know what I mean? Because like in any profession, you're getting paid market rates generally. So it's like difficult there. But I guess when it comes to the Jaguars at pick number 24, like, I would love to get a tight end just because I think that would be exciting. But at the same time, like history is kind of scary when it comes to drafting tight ends in the first round, because it's like,
Yeah.
You could say, okay, this guy's going to be different. This guy's going to be different. But like every year, I mean, when a tight end is drafted in the first round, they turn out to generally be like good. But like the great tight ends, were like George Kittle or like Travis Kelce, guys that were like drafted in like the mid rounds. And it's a really weird spot because like I think finding an elite tight end is harder than finding an elite quarterback, because when you look at it, there are more great quarterbacks in the NFL right now than great tight ends. And when you look at how to draft them, I mean, the best tight ends aren't drafted first. They're drafted like in the middle to like undrafted. It's just weird to position a tight end. So I don't know. I guess what are your thoughts about all that and maybe drafting a tight end at 24?
I do agree. It is not one of the more favorable positions to draft in the first round. You do look over the course of history. Most of those guys, as you said, they've been good, but they do take a long time to develop as well. Tight end, depending on where you land, can be a very difficult position to transition from college to the NFL. If you're a guy that's not experienced blocking in line and you go to a team where they're going to require that of you, it's going to be a difficult transition. You have to basically learn how to be an offensive lineman and a receiver at the same time in a lot of different systems. I do think if there was a team that could draft a guy and know exactly how to use him from day one, it's probably a Doug Peterson coach team. So I will say that I definitely wouldn't slam them for bringing in a Michael Mayer or a Dalton Kincaid or a Luke Musgrave, whoever it may be that's a talented tight end, a receiving tight end. But probably are they going to be able to make as big an impact as a pass rusher or a nickel corner? No, probably not. At least
Yeah.
not early on.
Yeah, no, it's just tricky. I mean, I think because I mean you want to bring in a tight end that's such a dual threat kind of thing when it comes to like, run blocking and then like pass catching, and then really like tight end. Like the play of Evan Ingram helped us out tremendously, because I remember that Dallas game, just the way he fought to get out of bounds in that game. I mean, that essentially won us the game. And then, later on against the Chargers in the playoffs, just one of those balls that he caught kind of that was a little bit low and below him, and just being able to bring that in. I mean, when it comes to the drops that the Giants hated him for, I mean, he didn't bring any of that to Jacksonville. And really, it was really important. And like, when it comes to bringing him in on this offense, I mean, he was definitely a key role to this team. But you just wonder if like Doug Peterson's like, okay, I need to go out and get like a guy that I really think that I can build up into, my ideal tight end. And, it
Well,
really
it might
doesn't
not
admit.
even be about that. It might just be about, look, we don't think we can get a long-term deal done with Evan Ingram. We
Yeah.
want to refortify the back end of that position and be ready for the future.
Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. And that's tough because we don't know how those it's hard for us to speculate because we have no idea how those conversations are going. I mean, it looks like Evan Ingram, he's not too mad about getting put on the franchise tag. I mean, granted, he's getting a lot of money, and that's one thing that's funny about franchise tags is like nobody likes them, but you get a lot of money when you're playing on them. But yeah, it's difficult, when it comes down. I know the agent's kind of getting in on it, but we gotta keep looking forward at our roster. And you look at stuff like, Calvin Ridley and Josh Allen. Those guys are 1 year left on their deals, and you definitely want to bring back Calvin Ridley. Like Josh Allen, you want to bring him back too, but you want to bring him back on something that like makes sense, because I'm sure he's going to want elite pass rusher money. But, at this moment, he's not an elite pass rusher, but he's a damn good football player. You want to keep him around, but, I know no one the Jaguars is going to go out there and have 16 sacks this year, and he's going to command like, have a Juwan Taylor type redemption year. But yeah, it's
You're gonna be the highest paid pass rusher in the free agency next year.
yeah. Yeah, and then
But you take
And
that
one,
because what does that mean for the 2022 season?
yeah, and then one thing that you I mean you look at with it is like if he comes out and has like a big year, yeah, exactly. Like it helps the Jaguars and it moves us forward. And
Comp pick.
man, it's just yeah, it's just yeah, comp pick. I know one guy was asking, Gary was asking about our comp pick situation. Yeah, we're finally getting a third round pick next year for Jawan Taylor, it's looking like. And I think Arden Key
Unless they
qualifies this.
unless they go get some other guys, which they might. Yeah, I think right now Arden Key and Chris Manhertz and Jawan Taylor are all comp picks. 3rd, 6th, and 7th,
What we
I
need is
believe.
we need Mike Caldwell to have like a crazy year where he gets a head coach job and we get like 3 third-round picks, because that's that happened. I mean, I think like with the 49ers with like Robert Saleh going to the Jets, and then I think D'Amico Ryan's going over to like, when they hire like when other teams hire their coaches and they're like minorities, they get like really, really well rewarded when it comes to
Yeah.
like comp picks. So, that could be something. I'm really pulling for Mike Caldwell, especially when it comes to that. But yeah, we have certain situations here. So I guess getting into the NFL draft, what's your top what do you think your top need going into this draft is?
It's nickel. I mean,
Nickel.
there's no point in skirting around it. Look, the Jaguars have 2 good starting pass rushers, and they expect significant development from Trayvon Walker. And you saw significant development from Trayvon Walker. I tweeted this out a couple days ago. Weeks 1 through 12, his pass rush win rate was 9%. And from week 13 to the end of the season, divisional playoffs, it was about 16%. So you saw improvement there. You saw him making more plays. I think you're going to see even more improvement from Trayvon Walker in year 2. I think they're going to let him rush with his hand in the dirt a little bit more. I think he's clearly more comfortable doing that. And I think he did get more comfortable playing outside linebacker. So you talk about edge. Yeah, they have like 1,000 snaps to replace at edge between Arden Key and Dewan Smoot. But is that a bigger need than nickel, in my opinion? No. I think you are only as good as your weakest link in coverage, and right now their weakest link in coverage is nickel. It's Trey Herndon, who would be their starter right now. So I think, yeah, nickel is the biggest need, and there's a bunch of guys in this class that I think could come in and fill that need. We talked about Brian Branch. I think Jartavius Martin out of Illinois in the 2nd round would be tremendous in that role, very similar to Brian Branch, but really a better overall athlete. So there's a lot of options for the Jaguars to fill that nickel spot. But for me, yeah, you don't want to enter the season feeling the way I think you should feel about Trey Herndon, right, as your starter. You want to have that solidified. You want to take what was a bit of a weakness, which was coverage over the middle of the field at the end of the season, and you want to turn that into a strength. You could do that, again, by going and getting a Brian Branch or a Jartavius Martin.
So question for you, when it comes to like, because I'm not a big I don't know all about the NFL films and stuff like that when it comes to breaking it all down. But one thing I know is that, it seems like there's certain qualities that, make a cornerback good, a lot better at being on the outside. And there's certain traits that make cornerbacks a lot better playing on the inside. Like, do you think that the Jaguars, like going into this draft, like, should they be drafting a player like based on, okay, this guy is truly the best available cornerback, but maybe he doesn't fit in the nickel spot as well? Or do you think they more so target a guy that, okay, this guy could be our nickel for the next 4 years and kind of, go against like the typical, like, because, even like size wise, a lot of times, like, your outside guys, big, long, lanky, long arms. And a lot of times your nickel guys are a little bit shorter. They're a little bit shiftier. They're, and a little bit quicker. So I guess when it comes to that, what are your thoughts on that?
I think in a perfect world, there's a nickel out there that fits what you need. And I think there are nickels out there that fit what you need. But should the Jaguars not draft an outside corner that they are in love with because of Darius Williams? No. If they absolutely love an outside corner, whether that be at pick 24 or 56 or wherever the hell we're talking about, go get your guy and bring him in. Darius Williams can play nickel. I think he was playing nickel fairly well last year. People look at the stats at nickel. That's another thing that people should know about the nickel position. Statistically, they are going to give up a higher completion percentage than outside corners, even if they're playing at a high level. That's because it is a more difficult position to cover. You're talking about a guy who is responsible, if you're in man-to-man coverage, for a receiver that can run at them, run straight down the field, head towards the sideline, head inside. They have three different options, three ways to go. If you're playing outside corner, you have the boundary as your friend. You can use the boundary as another defender. You don't have that when you're playing nickel. And so their stats are not going to be as sexy as outside corners usually. They're going to give up a higher completion percentage. That's just the way it is. So yeah, I think Darius Williams can play nickel for you if you need to. So yeah, if you would rather go get a really long athletic outside corner and put Darius Williams back inside at nickel, I would feel bad for him because I think he's a worthy outside corner. But no, I don't think he should stop you from getting the best player for your system.
Yeah. Shout out to Edgar for the €1 donation. And yeah, I remember playing I remember just playing like intramurals and flag football in like college. And I'm like, dude, like nickel playing in the middle sucks because these guys can go that way or that way. But yeah, when you're outside, you can like the boundary really is your friend, and there's not too many different like ways they can go. So yeah, that's that's another one where the Jaguars, could definitely pick one at number 24. So it's really about because once you get where the Jags are, usually before the Jags pick, especially around like really 10 to 25, there's like runs of positions that go. And there always seems to be, wide receiver runs or like cornerback runs. And, there's offensive line runs. And, really it's just all about like, not getting to, okay, we're running out of these guys. We got to go pick that guy, type of thing. And that like the value, really fits where, the Jaguars are going when it comes to like where they pick. So yeah,
Yeah, a
I
lot of
guess
the good teams will zig while the other teams are zagging. Like if there's a run on offensive tackles, don't take the sixth best offensive tackle, take the first best, whatever position hasn't had a run yet. That type of thing.
so I guess because I know, a lot of people are in agreement that Doug Peterson, awesome coach, the answer. Trevor Lawrence, awesome quarterback, he's the answer. But I feel like there's still a debate about Trent Baalke. I know a lot of people comment on my videos. I still don't trust him. And there's still a large contingent of people out there that, don't really like Trent Baalke. So I guess when it comes to you, do you are you happy with what Trent Baalke is doing, or I'm sure you're still kind of in wait and see mode because we got to wait, especially with the 2022 NFL draft, really how it plays out. I know he pretty much hit 2021 out of the park, and he had a great free agency class last year, but we'll see kind of how he's able to manipulate the cat going forward. But I guess with you, how do you feel about Trent Baalke?
Yeah, it is interesting. Obviously, everyone wanted him fired after the Jaguars ended up with the first pick for the second straight season, right? Reasonably so. People were not happy. I get that. I said he should have been fired after the 2021 season. I think he should have been probably. That's not that's not me revisionist history. I think at that time he probably should have been fired, but he wasn't. And lo and behold, he has an offseason where he has a bunch of money to spend and hits on pretty much everybody he brings in free agency, which doesn't happen often. So props to him for that. I liked a lot of the picks he made in 2022 as well. Obviously, 2021 was a home run of a draft. 2022, I think, Trayvon Walker was a reach at one, but does that mean he's not going to end up being a stud? No. He has a lot of the ingredients necessary to become a stud, but he's going to have to do it. And he didn't do it in year one to the extent that you would want a first overall pick to do, but that was the expectation. You knew he was raw. You drafted a guy to play outside linebacker who has never played outside linebacker consistently. He was a guy that moved up and down the line of scrimmage, rushed a lot more with his hand in the dirt than from a 2-point stance. So yeah, it was always going to take some time for him. But I loved the Devin Lloyd pick, even though it's a linebacker in the first round, which is kind of like tight end, ends up, kind of being a difficult position to really hit on in the first round. But I love Devin Lloyd, the prospect. I love Luke Fortner and Chad Muma, the prospects. So yeah, I liked that draft. I think the Calvin Ridley move was still
Oh
one of
yeah,
the
it's very
more impressive.
overlooked.
That was one of the more impressive moves I can remember in recent years, not from the Jaguars, just in general,
Yeah,
because it came out of nowhere. No one was expecting it. There was no one else vying for his for trading for him at that time. I think teams were going to wait to this offseason to try to do that. He got ahead of the curve and he built in all the necessary um, necessary language to where the Jaguars are protected if it doesn't work out.
yeah. And then you saw a team like, they could have been impatient, and what impatience gave you was Chase Claypool with a 32 overall pick.
Yeah.
And I mean, yeah, Calvin Ridley. I mean, I remember lobbying for the Jaguars like before he got suspended in 2021. When I heard that he wanted to get traded, I'm like, dude, we got to go after this guy. Like,
Yep.
and I'm not a guy that's like trade for this guy, trade for that guy. I'm pretty conservative because I do really like draft picks. But I was like, dude, this guy is really, really good, clean route runner, just gets so much separation, puts guys on skates. He's so fun to watch. And I'm really pumped that he's going to be like in a Jaguars uniform this year. And yeah, that's one of the more underrated moves that, I guess when people think about GMs, they're like, okay, free agency draft, they think about that kind of stuff. But it's like, you also got to think about, things like that. So shout out to Adam, $5 donation, lost his UCF IM game. Apologies. I know
Such a
probably
shame.
some cheating going on. Um, but yeah, and Edgar with a €2 donation. I believe in Walker. That rookie will improve, and that's one thing.
I
I
do
guess
too.
with Trayvon Walker, like I do think that he's going to be a good football player. I just don't know if he's ever going to turn into that really true double-digit sack guy. And one thing that I worry about with the Jaguars is when it comes to like justifying draft positions, because like if he turns into like a really good like big end in the NFL, then was he really worth like the number one pick? Like, is getting a good big run stuffer guy that sometimes gets pressures, is that like worth the number one overall pick, or do they really, really whiff at being able to
No,
get like an Aiden Hutchinson?
it's not worth the number one overall pick, but their vision for him is not that. Their vision is a guy that is going to be, yes, a dominant run defender, but also somebody who makes big plays in big time moments. And again,
But the
he
thing is,
did
what if he's not that though? What if like
and it's a miss.
I worry that they're gonna keep trying to stand him up in a 2-point position, even though that's not his natural thing, when he would be a lot better with his hand in the ground playing as a big end. But they're gonna be like, we can't do that because then that's gonna make the draft spot look stupid. But
No,
playing him in a
okay.
two, you know what I
I don't
mean?
think that's the issue. I don't think they're worried about where he's playing. I think they're going to try to put him in the best position to succeed.
Okay.
And when you talk about the Jaguars defense, he's a fantastic outside linebacker in base downs. He is fantastic when it comes to setting the edge, playing the run. Now, when you talk about getting into those lightning packages, those nickel packages where you are just trying to race to the quarterback, that's when you put him with a hand in the dirt and let him rush, whether it be from, right outside the tackle or three tech, wherever it may be. I think that's when you let him kind of unleash from a 3-point stance or even a 4-point stance and, and pursue the quarterback in that way. I don't think they're going to be like, oh, well, we can't justify what his position is. He's going to be a versatile player. That's what his position should be. He should be
Yeah.
versatile.
Yeah, I just, we'll see what the coaching staff does. Sometimes I worry about that, where it's like, okay, we need to, I don't know if and I don't think that would happen in the building, have like true, like, I don't think ownership interference brings in. I think the only time ownership interference may have came in was during 2020 when the Jets kind of messed up a little bit, where Shad's like, okay, wave it in, guys. We got the number one pick. But yeah, it's, we'll see with Trayvon Walker. That's one guy that, once training camp starts, we're going to be staring at him like crazy to see, does he have any more pass rushing moves? Because that's the thing. I mean, we know he's powerful, but, being powerful, turns you into Taven Bryan. You need to bring in, and of course, it's not Taven Bryan. It's just, he's just, Taven Bryan's that big, powerful dude that
Yeah.
just, doesn't really know what to do with his power. I'm hoping with
Yeah.
Trayvon Walker, like
Trayvon's not that. Trayvon's
yeah,
not.
he's definitely not that. I think Taven Bryan's like the ultimate like This guy is like, it's funny, every team that gets him, like I remember when the Browns got him, they were
They're
like
fired
Browns
up.
guys breaking down his traits. They're like, dude, this guy, like, look at all his potential. Look at the way he pushes his pocket. And like, now Colts guys are like, dude, we got a big guy. But there's football IQ is a real thing. And yeah, man, I guess that was
See,
kind of
that's what I don't think Trayvon's missing. I think he's intelligent. I think there was rookie moments, obviously, some of the penalties, some of that stuff, but I think
his
he,
very first game. That interception was savvy.
yeah, it was. And you see other plays like that throughout his film in 2022. So I think it's going to come together for him. This was a kid who literally throughout his college career, he added weight, he dropped weight, he moved around positions. He didn't get to play that much all the time because you have Jordan Davis and all these other stud pass rushers around you and stud defensive linemen around you. They rotate so much. So it was always going to be a year of growth for Trayvon Walker. But now in year two, that is when you do need to see that leap forward. And again, I think you did see it towards the end of the season. The Jaguars don't make the playoffs without Trayvon Walker's efforts against the Titans, and they do not beat the Chargers without his efforts against the Chargers. That's facts. I mean, he
Yeah.
was very good in both of those games.
Yeah, I mean, the Jaguars definitely needed everybody. Like when you look back at last year's free agency class, it's like, we spent a lot of money. Was it worth it? Well, would we have been in the playoffs without Evan Ingram? Probably not. Would we have been in the playoffs without Christian Kirk? Probably not. How about like Zay Jones? Probably not. Luke. It's like, all these guys, like, I mean, we gambled and we did pretty well. And, that draft class was, good and or not draft class, free agent class, and most of them took restructurings. I think like 5 out of 7 of the guys that we picked all like restructured.
Yeah,
Outside
Sheriff
of
did.
Arden Key, who it was Sheriff, Zay
Sheriff,
Jones, Christian Kirk,
Foye,
yeah, Foye, and then
Foley.
yeah, fully, yeah. And
Yeah,
then Roy Robertson Harrison 2021, but he restructured. And yeah, all the guys, and then Ingram obviously franchise tag, and then Arden Key, bye-bye. That's one thing I hope. Can we find another Arden Key, just a guy sitting out there on the streets that has
look,
a lot of potential that we can just give a cheap deal to?
they're out there, and it's not just like guys with a lot of potential. There's those vets out there, man, like
Yeah, there's like
Justin
Justin
Houston.
Houston, Yannick Ngakoue.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Melvin Ingram, Carlos Dunlap helped the Chiefs win a Super Bowl
that's what
last
I
year.
want, man. I want a guy like that to come in here.
Yeah, I think that's what they need. That's what I've been talking about. They need a veteran edge rusher. Look, if you want to go get an edge rusher at 24, that's great. If you want to get an edge rusher at 24 and draft another one, I'm all for it. But the chances of them being an impact edge rusher in year one are fairly slim.
Yeah.
Pass rushers, for the most part, don't have massive production in year one. I mean, Aiden Hutchinson did, and the Jags had every chance to draft him. They
Yeah.
didn't. But their thinking is that in 3 years, who's going to be a better player? They're hoping it's Trayvon Walker. But right now, yeah, Aiden Hutchinson is a better player. But you don't see that type of production all that often in year one from young pass rushers. So I think getting a veteran who knows what he's doing in the NFL and can come in and fulfill a role for your football team, a designated pass rusher, would be huge.
Yeah, I don't think the Jaguars are truly a Super Bowl contender until a guy takes a 1-year deal with us to go ring hunting. Okay,
Yeah, let's
but
do
yeah,
it.
yeah. I mean, there's guys even like Clowney's out there. There's a lot of guys. It's like, I wonder, I wonder if it's possible to if they plan on doing any of that. And when it comes to edge rusher, I know one guy mentioned like Brian Breesy. If the Jaguars were to go edge rusher, at that pick number 24, is there a list of guys you think fits best into our defense?
Definitely. So Brissy's interesting. He's a interior pass rusher. He just had so much stuff he had to deal with off the field during the last couple years. Family tragedies, injuries, you know, infections, like all sorts of craziness that he's had to deal with. I think at times during his final year at Clemson, he looked like the first overall or number one overall recruit that he was coming out of high school. But it'll be interesting to see where he lands. He's a top 25 talent, I think. Definitely a top 31 talent. There's only 31 picks in the draft first round this year. I think he should go in the first round, but will he? I'm not sure. But edge rusher specifically that I think makes sense for the Jaguars. We talked about Miles Murphy. He is not the most refined rusher, but he is experienced rushing the edge. He's got great power, great athleticism. He'd definitely be a candidate if he fell in the mold of a Trayvon Walker type player, but with more college production, with a little bit more experience, just actually rushing the passer from the edge spot. Other edge players. Let me pull my guys up. I think when you look at Keon White, he's visited with the Jaguars. I think he would be really interesting um, out of Georgia Tech. A
Okay.
absolute freak, 280 pounds, 6'4". He's got the length you're looking for, incredible athleticism, blew up the Senior Bowl, blew up his final year at Georgia Tech. And this is a guy that was playing tight end at Old Dominion more than defensive end prior to transferring over to Georgia Tech. So a guy that I think is on the rise for sure is Keon White. I think you look at BJ Ojolari, Aziz Ojolari's brother, really similar profile to Aziz, who went, I think, at the end of the first round or early in the second round a couple years ago to New York. And he's a guy that, if that's the type of rookie I think that could come in and be a designated pass rusher for you, because he's got a bag of tricks up his sleeve. He's a really, really good athlete, really sudden athlete, has the length you're looking for, has the pass rush profile you're looking for. Talking about bringing him as a third edge rusher, I think could be really good. I think Will McDonald could be really good out of Iowa State. He's a really unique type of prospect because I think he's 6'3", but he has like 35-inch arms, really great proportional length. He plays with natural leverage. He can beat you on the outside track. He can beat you inside. And he's just got such long arms that it's hard to get a hand on him. But he's coming in at about 240 pounds. He really reminds me a lot of Arden Key, but with more juice and athleticism. So I think any of those guys would make sense for the Jaguars at 24 overall. When you talk about pass rushers, I think there's a couple guys that could be in play that might shock or surprise people a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jaguars love Isaiah Foskey out of Notre Dame. He's a guy that has had double-digit sacks in each of the last 2 seasons for them. He has all the physical tools, all the athleticism. You just want to see a little bit more consistency on tape. So if you get a guy that just needs to be a little bit more consistent, you bring him in to be a third down edge rusher. That could make a lot of sense. See people talking about Nolan Smith. I don't think he'll fall to the Jaguars, but he's one of the freakiest edge prospects you'll ever see. Another guy that's under 240 pounds. He doesn't have the length of a Will McDonald, but he ran a 4.39. He leaped 41 and a half inches, and all that shows up on tape. He gets into the backfield quicker than anyone I've seen in this class, bar none. We've got Devin saying, don't forget Lucas Van Ness, another guy who I do not think will fall to the Jaguars at 24. But yeah, absolutely. He's a power rusher that has great athleticism as well. So the Jaguars, if they do want to go edge at 24, they're going to have a bunch of options. Even if they want to go attack it in the second round, they're going to have options. I think they like a guy like Derek Hall, who has the length and natural leverage out of Auburn. Felix Anudike-Uzomah, who's got all the traits you're looking for out of Kansas State. There are a ton of options for the Jaguars at edge.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of names to chew on there. I mean, it looks like the Jags are definitely going to have options. Real quick shout out to everybody in here, man. 167 people here. Bunch of people excited about the draft. By the way, I'm here with Jordan DeLugo from the GenJag YouTube channel. All his links down below, so go give him a follow on Twitter as well as a subscribe here on YouTube. Steve left a comment. We need a cornerback at 24. Pass rush means nothing when the opposing quarterback doesn't have to hold onto the ball long. Yeah, this is kind of a push-pull thing where it's like, oh, what's the point of having great cornerbacks when you have no pass rush? Oh, what's the point of having great pass rush if your quarterbacks stink? Yeah, it's it's definitely one of those debates, and there's a legitimate debate. What's more important, having a great secondary or having a great pass rush? And I mean, I tend to think I would rather have a great pass rush, but that's just me. I guess what side of the argument do you fall in there?
Well, it depends on your defense for sure. But in a vacuum, generally speaking, I would say elite corner play is more valuable than elite edge play. But cornerback play is not super sticky from year to year. I think edge rushers are more consistent from year to year than cornerbacks are. So it's interesting. But for the Jaguars' perspective, look, they were getting pressure all year for the most part. They didn't get a ton of pressure during that 5-game losing streak or whatever it was, but outside of that, they were getting mad pressure for a lot of the year. And I do think if you had a secondary where quarterbacks didn't feel just super comfortable launching the ball up, that you would have gotten more sacks, more quarterbacks on the ground. I really believe that. I think again, when you look at the statistics, the Jaguars were among the league leaders in pressures last year, but they were like 26 in sacks. I think part of that is at least the fact that they were so poor on the back end.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's and it's tough because like last year the Jaguars, there were some weak spots in the pass rush, and there were some weak spots when it comes to, the secondary. And you're looking at every year you see receivers, you don't get one receiver, you get two receivers, because if one receiver is shut down by their number one, you have a mismatch on the other side. And really NFL nowadays, the coaching is so good. Like, and you saw the Jaguars last year, like, is it going to be a Christian Kirk day? Is it going to be a Zay Jones day? Is it going to be an Evan Ingram day? And it's all about matchups, And a lot of times you saw early on, like the first drive, oh, Evan Ingram had 3 receptions. Looks like it's going to be his day. I mean, a lot of times the Jaguars kind of telegraphed it for us about who the guy was going to be that game. And, and that's how it is, man. And you see teams go into these games and it's like, oh, like their weak spot is over here, so we're going to attack Trey Herndon, or back when Darius Williams was struggling a little bit. And, you saw the Colts go after Shaquille Griffin all game. And that was actually his last game as a Jaguar when he let up that pass against Alec Pierce. So, yeah, it's
Devin Lloyd. I mean, they just eviscerated that on the crossers. The Colts did in their win against the Jaguars this year.
Yeah, and Aaron Berkshire says Calvin Ridley Day. Yeah, I think every game's going to be a Calvin Ridley Day. It's going to be exciting, man. Having a great elite quarterback throwing to a true number one receiver. I mean, I didn't really. I say this all the time on my channel. I was born in '93, so I didn't really live through like the '90s era when like Mark Brunell was throwing all over to like Jimmy Smith. I do remember a little bit of Jimmy Smith, but it was more like Byron Leftwich passing to him. I don't really remember the. I never really had memories of Mark Brunell at all as a Jaguar, but it's going to be exciting, man. I think already the Jaguars have like the second best head coach and second best quarterback in franchise history. And there's a very, very real chance that before we know it, they're going to be the top guys in each category. I think it may take a little bit longer for Doug Peterson to really prove that, just because Coughlin, 2-time Super Bowl champion, but Trevor Lawrence.
Not for the Jags.
Yeah. I mean,
not for the Jags.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah. I mean, if he goes to the Super Bowl, he's probably the best coach in franchise history, right?
If Doug Peterson wins the Super Bowl, well, yeah. If he goes to the Super Bowl,
if he goes to the Super Bowl next year, does he rise above Tom Coughlin in the power rankings?
No,
Tom Coughlin's tough because like Tom Coughlin like built the Jaguars in a lot of sense.
He's got to do it.
He came in when it was
longer.
just a trailer. Yeah,
he's got to do it a little longer. Now, this is something I said yesterday on Twitter. I think some people got their feathers ruffled.
Oh, I said people always getting their feathers ruffled.
I said Travis Etienne is one of the top 3 most talented backs that the Jaguars have ever had. When I say talent, I don't mean best. I don't mean, has had the most career production or the greatest career for the Jaguars. I'm saying talent. Travis Etienne is a top 3 talent at running back in Jaguars history. Trevor Lawrence is the most talented quarterback the Jaguars have ever had.
Oh, yeah. And a lot of that's intangibles. I mean, Mark Brunell, like what could he – I mean, Mark Brunell can't grow 5 inches or however much taller they were than just have the kind of arm strength and ability that he has. And, yeah, I mean –
he's a very good quarterback. Trevor Lawrence has a chance to be the best quarterback in the NFL.
And that's one thing that, like, you touch on most talented. And, when it comes to Travis Etienne, that's one thing that was so disappointing about Leonard Fournette, because that guy had all the freaking potential, but he just had no vision, man. And it was disappointing because not only was his vision bad, it was like the amount of like ankle tackles. I'm like, dude, I thought this guy was going to come in and just completely bowl over people, be like, kind of like a Derrick Henry. I thought he would be, but it was just disappointing. But yeah, I mean, one thing that's surprising about Travis Etienne is just the contact balance. He's a very strong guy. He doesn't go down very easy. And just when I think of Travis Etienne, I think of that fourth down call against the Chargers, that in the round where, oh my gosh, that was
Yeah, that
that
was
was
awesome.
spectacular. And it was so cool
I
being in that stadium that day.
And the contact balance and the ability to fight for extra yards, run through some tackles and pick up a couple extra yards, fall forward. That's the icing on the cupcake with Travis Etienne. His game is
Yeah.
about destroying angles. It's about getting in space and absolutely destroying angles. If you pop on his tape, it's unbelievable how many times when he gets to the second level, it looks like a safety or a linebacker or someone should absolutely have a beat on him, and they don't even get close to touching him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun, man. And like when you like I think there's gonna be a real discussion soon about like when it comes to top running backs. I mean, I think you're gonna have to have, Travis Etienne in that conversation because I mean, I guess right now, this would be an interesting question. Who would you take at running back right now? Travis Etienne or Jonathan Taylor?
Oh God.
It's tough, man.
Jonathan Taylor coming off of a not great season. Um, I'll say this. In Doug Peterson's offense, I would take Travis Etienne.
Yeah. I think I would too. I think I would too.
But that is like that's that's a loaded question.
Well, it's
I'll take
hard
either
because you
one and I'll
also
be really freaking happy about it. How about that?
yeah. I mean, it's hard because whenever you have these conversations, I mean, a lot of times before even thinking about the actual player, I think, okay, contract, age, injury, before I even think about like his level of play.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
mean, that's one thing
You
positive
got
about Travis. That's one thing that's positive about Travis Etienne is like we were worried like coming out to Liz Frank, what was he going to be? And it was crazy how he had over 1,000 rushing yards last year because it felt like he did it so quietly. Like I mean, he was just a strong runner, and he's a fun running back, and I can't wait to have him back again and see what the next step for him is.
Yeah, he did have some quiet 100-yard games. I'll definitely
Yeah,
say that.
they
Just
were real
because,
quiet.
he got like 18 touches, maybe had one or two big runs. The rest of them were like 3, 4 yards. But then you look up at the stats at the end of the day, and it's like 18 carries for 110 yards, and you're like, damn.
Well,
So
yeah,
yeah,
because I didn't think he had a lot of like super highlight plays. A lot of them was just like, okay, bend around the edge. Okay, like he guided through the holes well on this one, and it was yeah, it was it wasn't like he had the Leonard Fournette like 90-yard run where just like the walls break up. But I know like he had at least one big run against Houston late in the year. Which, by the way, thank God we got rid of that terrible streak. Right now
oof.
we broke a lot of bad streaks. The NFC opponent streak, the Titans streak, the Texans streak, the away game streak. I mean, there were a bunch of bad streaks that were like finally broken, included like the best one of all is just the playoff streak is the AFC South title streak because hey, we're AFC South champions right now, and it's gonna take these teams a lot to take that from us, and I don't see that happening next year.
No doubt. And for me, the question about this team in 2022, it's not if they're going to be better. They're going to be better. How much better are they going to be?
Yeah.
Some of that is going to have to do with the draft. It's also going to have to do with, do they bring in a veteran edge presence? And it's going to be mostly, though, dependent on internal development. Trevor Lawrence improving, Trayvon Walker improving, the entire offense and defense, just having more cohesiveness going into year two with the exact same staff for the most part, outside of losing Jim Bob Cooter. Um, it's going to be how much better are they? They're going to have a first place schedule that they face this year. Now, their division might not be the hardest division in football. The NFC South that they're playing might not be the toughest division in football to be playing against, but they're going to play more first place teams. They're going to play more playoff teams. And the expectation now, it won't be like, oh my gosh, if we get to the playoffs, we're going to be excited. The playoffs are the expectation now.
Yeah.
Now it's, can you go from being a team that sealed your division in week 18 to a team that maybe is able to earn home playoff games, home field advantage through the divisional round? Are you a team that's good enough to beat the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills, teams like this in the playoffs when it counts in January? That's going to be the question. And we're not going to know the answer, honestly. We're not going to know the answer until the season rolls around and they get to that point.
Yeah, talk is cheap. I know one of my favorite things about this year is like last year it was so hard to project the Jaguars because there were so many questions. So many more questions than answers. And now I feel like we finally have a lot of answers and less questions. So I guess the last thing before we go, because now we're hitting on over an hour. I could sit here and talk for hours and hours about the Jaguars, but I want to get your take on this because I think the AFC South, like quarterback wise, is pretty fascinating. I mean, how do you see really the draft shaken out? Like, you think that the Texans are pretty much all in, they're going to get a quarterback. It's interesting with the Colts because it looks like they're going to be trash next year. So are they in a situation where, like, would they rather take potentially like the third best quarterback on their board, or would they rather just be bad and get the number one pick next year where there seems to be a surefire number one guy? And what about the Titans? Are the Titans going to potentially trade up and maybe try to get in the mix at quarterback? I guess how do you feel the quarterback room shaking out in the AFC South?
Well, it all comes down to what Carolina does at 1, right? Do they take Bryce Young? Do they take CJ Stroud?
But they could trade back, though.
They could trade back. I don't think anybody's trading up at this point, though. But you never know.
I'm just joking. I remember after that trade, they're like, "Oh, Panthers could still trade back." I'm like, "Yeah, okay,
yeah, we'll see."
Likely.
I think the Panthers should take Bryce Young, but a lot of people think they're going to take CJ Stroud. Do I think that the Texans should take the next guy, whoever's available there, whether it's CJ Stroud or Bryce Young? Probably. I think they're both good enough to warrant that selection. And then they also have, I think, the number 12 overall pick, so they could, potentially add another weapon for the quarterback, or fortify the offensive line further, whatever they want to do. I think the Texans will take a quarterback. The Colts are up at 4. The Titans are a little bit further back. There's rumors of the Titans trading up for a quarterback. I have no idea what Mike Vrabel is going to do, but I'll tell you one thing. If Anthony Richardson ends up in Indy, I think that's the best possible outcome for him. I think going to play for Shane Steichen, who developed the offense around Jalen Hurts in Philly, I think that would be tremendous for Anthony Richardson. I think it'd be scary. I think having Anthony Richardson in the same backfield as Jonathan Taylor or Derrick Henry, if the Titans trade up and get frisky, it's pretty terrifying. He's a freak show. He's got a long way to go when it comes to his accuracy and his throwing mechanics and his base consistency. But there's a lot of high-level stuff there with Anthony Richardson. If I had to guess, I would say Bryce Young to Houston, and I would say Anthony Richardson to the Colts. And hey, if Will Levis is there for the Titans, maybe they take him.
So I have to I got interrupted this stream, and I have to show you what Aaron Berkshire said. So I'm on his Instagram. Dude, look at this. He has video of Trevor Lawrence throwing to,
hell yeah, Agent Zero.
Agent Zero. Look at this. Oh, look at that. Beautiful.
Where are we throwing?
No idea where
this is.
Is
that at Episcopal?
What, Bishop Kenny usually? Episcopal?
Looks like Episcopal.
That's Jamal Agnew, right?
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
They've got a good relationship with
there's
Episcopal
Evan
now after last year with training camp.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, this looks like Episcopal. They don't have the... Look at that. That's beautiful. Look, first sightings of... Let me drop a like on there. First sightings of our boy throwing to... Look at that. Is that the Pro Bowl hat?
Yep.
Dude, I love it. We're in a good era of Jaguar football right now, guys. This is gonna be a lot of fun. And Aaron, thanks for letting me know. Definitely hit up Aaron Berkshire Official on Instagram.
Yeah,
he posts
he's
a lot
the man.
of he puts a lot of Jags content on there. And he also has a YouTube channel that he's out here grinding on. So shout out to him. But all right, Jordan, I've kept you long enough. 1 hour, 10 minutes. You worked 10 minutes overtime. Appreciate you out here, bro. And yeah, guys, I have all his links down below, man. Give him a follow on Twitter. He's always on Twitter making people angrier than I make people. And he's also on YouTube pushing out the content there. So, hey, Jordan, appreciate you coming on, bro.
Absolutely. And I see somebody saying JDL had to slob over a Gator player. Hey, man, I'm just saying, I think Indy would be a perfect fit for Anthony Richardson. We'll see how it
I
plays
want
out. But yeah.
I kind of want him to go to Indianapolis just to mess with Gator fans because I know, you know, I just
Yeah,
think
there's
it'd be
so many
funny.
Jaguar Gator fans. And so many Gator fans are like so down on Anthony Richardson. It's kind of crazy how all
Yeah,
that works. But
it's kind of you know, people are like, oh, he's not ready yet. Dude, the moment you're a top 10 projected player, you're ready to go. Okay, like you're one play away from your whole entire football career being over. You can ask what is that guy Lattimore from South Carolina, the running back.
yeah,
You know, you're one play away. How about Mackenzie Milton? You're one play away from your football career being completely shattered. So go out there while you have your health and go get paid, man. So
no
I'm all
doubt.
about that. I'm all about leaving early and you know going taking your chance. Now, if you're leaving early and you're getting undrafted and you're playing in the XFL, then I might have some words with you. But you know how it
Ah,
goes. But
if you're gonna be a first round pick, go for it. I'm with you absolutely. But yeah, I really
yeah,
appreciate you having me on. It's great talking some Jags football, man.
absolutely, man. Draft is 22 days away, so we're ramping up, guys.